Coming up this week on Kiss My Collectibles, we have an exclusive interview with David Pea. Stay up to date with the show and subscribe to our channel on YouTube. Become a member of our brand new Patreon and receive exclusive updates and benefits.
Kiss My Collectibles podcast, but you knew that.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the next episode of Kiss My Collectibles. I am one of your co-hosts, Jason Herndon, and with me, as always, is
Stevie Nicks.
Stevie Nicks.
Paul Stanley.
You look like it with that haircut.
It's a great haircut.
Just kidding.
It's a great haircut.
Paul McCartney.
Paul McCartney.
That's right. So, anyway, we're going to do another Kiss Collectors Spotlight kind of thing, but it's going to be a little bit different this time because we're going to focus. Well, we've got David Pea with us today.
And for those of you that don't know, David Pea made Gene Simmons' Creature of the Night costume and the End of the Road costumes.
That's right. And while we do talk about, to David about his history with the band and some of his first collectibles, like we do with most of the collectors that we have on here, we spend most of our time talking about the evolution of his relationship with the band and the making of these costumes and the making of Sam T. Serpent. And it's just fascinating, folks.
Sam T. Serpent Jr.
That's right. Sam T. Hey, that's good. I like that. Sam T. Serpent Jr. But normally we record all of this at the same time with our guest, but this time we've pre-recorded the interview, and we just want to make sure that you stick around and listen to this whole thing because, man, I tell you what, I was fascinated.
Me too.
With the storytelling the whole time.
Me
just
too.
Fascinated.
Can we play my favorite game right now?
Let's play What's in the Box? What's in the box?
I know what's in this one just because I ordered it from the effervescent Julian Gill.
The effervescent Julian Gill.
I'm just trying to cut it open here.
Don't cut your finger off.
I know. Hold on. Man, this guy packages stuff like he's sold stuff before. Like, it's so well packaged. Fuck. All right. Oh, damn. Just gotta rip this thing apart. All right. The box is open. So, what's in the box? This is air from the Vancouver End of the Road Kiss show. It's authentic Kiss air that I purchased from Julian Gill. It's authentic. I don't.
Authentic air.
Authentic air. All right. So, for all of you people that don't know, Julian Gill is an esteemed author, and I did pick up his Danger Zone book, The Making of Crazy Nights. I'm very, very excited to start reading this, and I love all of Julian's books, and it's got a cool. Oh, check this out! Look, first of all, somebody scribbled on it. Sorry about that, but we got the Kiss FAQ podcast official guitar pick.
Yep. I don't think I got that with mine. I did get that though.
This is a Chikara sticker, which is very cool.
No, it's because I bought mine when it first came out.
Oh, I mean, and then we got one of these.
Yeah.
Little insert. I mean, I wanted to buy mine when it first came out, but I just kept forgetting. I would just send Julian messages. I'm like, excuse me, sir, may I give you some money, please? So, yes. Julian, thank you for this, but there's still more in the box. Let's see. Oh, yeah. Hardcover, The Odyssey, The Story of the Elder.
Shit, I bought that a year ago.
Well, see, here's the thing. The Odyssey, I bought the Odyssey and the solo album book for my iPad, and I don't even use the iPad anymore. It's so outdated. So I wanted to get a nice hard copy. So I still need to get the solo album book, which I'll pick up eventually.
Are we slowly turning you into a physical media guy?
Yes, you are. Yes,
That's
yes.
unbelievable.
Yes, yes. So
it's unbelievable.
And Julian, I'm very, very angry with you because. Oh wait, he's got a cool little. Oh, Gene fell.
You knocked Gene over.
And they got a cool little insert in there. It also advertises that that's coming soon.
Yep.
But when I was talking back and forth, he was like, "Oh, well, Danger Zone is already signed. Do you want me to sign the Odyssey?" I go, "Don't fucking sign it. Mushroom stamp it." But he signed it. So how great would that have been if it was an official? But I would have thought that was hilarious.
Oh man, that's too funny.
Anyway, pick up these 2 great books about 2 of the, I would say, most controversial Kiss albums. We got, Kiss does Bon Jovi, and then Kiss does Pink Floyd.
Sure, why not?
Great books. So check them out.
For my 2 cents, the Odyssey book is probably my favorite one that he's ever done.
I mean, first of all, the cover art is great, and there's just all kinds of like little nuances in here just about it. I mean, there was also some screenshots of the iVideo, which we've talked about at length before. But anyway, so very, very, very cool. So thank you, Julian.
Thank you, Julian. All right, me. I have gotten, again, I think I spoke a couple of episodes ago that I've gotten several things in lately, but I'm going to keep it short. I'm only going to show a couple things. And both of these I've already posted on Instagram and in the groups, but for those that aren't in or around those things, and you should be, I'm going to show them on the show. So we've got
your pajamas.
My pajamas. The mint green color, and that really is in good shape. And the seller that sold this was saying, these things are heavily used. Don't think you're getting. But I kept looking at the picture and thinking, man, that doesn't look heavily used to me. To me, that decal is still.
It looks great. Yeah, it looks great.
Super vibrant, and there's a couple of other colors of this that's available, and they're pretty hard to come by, and it smells like the 70s.
Yes, I love that.
But there's a lot of the clothing from Image and those companies back then in the late 70s and through the J.C. Penney catalog and all those sorts of things. They're super hard to come by these days, and they're super expensive. But I looked up and I got a great deal on this, an absolute steal. I only paid $200 for this.
Oh, you didn't need to say that.
But I wanted to.
Okay.
Because it blows my mind how cheap I got it for. So anyway, so there's that. And then another thing that I've always wanted, and this just came today, and I've always wanted this in my collection, is what is called the 1981 Kiss Diary.
In mint condition.
In dead mint condition. You can, look at all the gloss that's on it from the light, and this has, tons. It's not written in, and it's got, let me see if that focus in. Yeah. Nice. But it's got tons and tons of photos on the inside.
Nice.
It's I'm just tickled pink to have this in my collection finally.
Tickled pink.
So that's the stuff that I'm showing this week.
Just tune in next week where we show more shit.
And speaking of showing more shit, maybe we should go down under and see what Nicholas Buckland has to say.
If you notice behind me, we've got Gene and Paul, and I don't have the other two. But today, a package came in, so I thought I'd share this or live open it. It actually came inside a little lunchboxy thing inside another big box. So let's have a look at this. These are real beauties. Quite love these ones. I haven't even looked at these yet, so you're seeing my reaction live as I open these up. Oh, look at this quality. 1980. Look at this beautiful, almost mint condition 1980 mask with Mr. Ace Frehley. Look at that. Oh my goodness. This is a great one. Peter Criss with his lovely first album makeup. So now I hold it like this and like this. We've kind of got all four in a row, so I'll have to get another couple of heads for it. But there we go, Kiss costumes, 1980 style. That's just a short one tonight. I'll see you later. Bye.
I always love when Nicholas Buckland comes on the show and does cool stuff like that. But again, not to cut away again, let's sit down with our exclusive interview with David Pea from Kiss Replicas and Gene Simmons Costume Maker.
David, thanks for joining us all the way from Toronto, right?
You got it. Hi, guys. Nice to be here. Thank you.
Yeah, man.
Good to have you here. Good to have you here.
Yeah, his backdrop is absolutely killer. Absolutely killer. So
you guys said that I'm a little narrower because it's too bad you can't pan out because I've got all the female Kiss costumes behind me as well, and sadly you guys can't see those.
Oh man, that stinks. Well, Dave, we want to chat with you about everything that you're doing with Kiss Replicas, and the history, your history with the band, and your history with
Sure.
Yeah, so let's just jump right into it.
Yeah. For those of you that don't know, because I do want to get these out of the way first, for those of you that don't know, you could find David and David's company at udreplicas.com, and David also works with Kiss costumes and has a Kiss retail store called kissreplicas.com. So before you even watch this interview, pause it, go to the website, check out udreplicas.com, and then check out kissreplicas.com, and then come back and watch the show.
And buy something.
Buy something, yes. Buy something.
Buy something.
You guys are great.
So for those of you that have seen these episodes before, these collector spotlights, you know how this works out. This one's just going to be a little bit different because David does work officially with Kiss. So David, take us back. How did you discover Kiss? How did you become a fan?
Okay, it's really surreal because we're going back to 77, and that was my first introduction to Kiss, and I'll get to it, but my thing is this. Even in 77, I was 8 years old. My earliest memories, because my mom has Polaroids that prove it, I was making costumes as a kid, and I would basically just tape pieces of paper together and drape it over my body and color it with crayon. So I was big already at that age. The costuming thing and Adam West Batman was such a big deal to me. Now, I had a next door neighbor in my apartment building, and he was, I would say, more into music than any of us at our age group. And he's more or less my age. He might have been a year older, a year younger. I honestly don't recall. We were tight, good friends. And he had Kiss dolls, and he had, well, the action figures is the proper term now, but he also had the album Love Gun. Now, I remember seeing it every now and then when I'd go over to his house, but my younger brother, Matteo, if you're watching, hi, and you should be, but he traded to our neighbor, whose name is Jimmy. So my brother, Matt, traded some game or something for the album Love Gun, and ended up bringing this album. I literally have this vision of the front door opening and the lights, as this record comes into the house, and it was the first time I really got a good look at it. I just remember the title Love Gun, and in my head I remember it LUVGUN. As a kid, and it wasn't until like not too many years ago, okay, that I actually realized, it's actually LOVE, not LUV. Okay, so and I've gotten stupid stories like that, tons of them. But anyway, so the album, even though it belonged to my brother, it immediately became mine. I would stare at it and draw that album cover over and over again. And it wasn't for at least, I don't know, a few days. It could have even been more than a week that it even dawned on me, there's music in here. Let's listen to the music. Now, again, I was 8 years old, and we're looking at an album that basically has devil worshippers on it, right? So, and our record player was up on this big cabinet. It was out of arm's reach because we can't listen to devil music, right? So my mom is the one who made sure that we operated the record player ethically and morally and all of that. So she agreed to let it play. And so she put it on, and the opening tune, I Stole Your Love, amazing. But the best part is it was skipping after the first few strums, dun, da, 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 and it just kept playing that over and over and over. Thinking, well, this is really cool, but do they sing or like what happens here? So eventually, when we realized the record was skipping, I was hooked first on them as people, as characters, as superheroes, as demons, as whatever you want to call them, whatever they were. And then when I heard the music, that was it. I was hooked big time. And then it wasn't too long after the fact that I managed to trade my neighbor something to get the Kiss action figures into my possession. So I have 3 of them, a 4th one, Ace, a dear friend of mine, Larry, who I'm still in touch with, should also be watching. He's got that. But recently I managed to score a set of destroyed ones on eBay. He's nodding.
I remember that.
So I have an extra backup set. So my introduction was back in '77 at Love Gun, and honestly, it changed my life. I have to say that it paved the way for where we are today. Batman, Darth Vader, and Kiss have been the three major influences for me growing up, and as an adult professional in the industry, those three things shaped my style, my attitude, the feeling of everything that we do. And so yeah, working with the band now, it's a thrill, it's a dream come true, it's everything you can say and then some.
That story that you told, which was intriguing, there's a little nugget in it that I'm wondering now. So you said that your mother wouldn't let you guys play music on the record player, unless it was, ethical, non-devil worshiping. And then you just kind of blew past and said, and then she agreed to let us play it. How did she agree to let you play it?
Well, okay, you have to. Well, first of all, let me clarify what ethical music was. We listened to a lot of Julio Iglesias growing up.
Okay.
So that was ethical, right?
Yeah.
And to be honest with you, it's not like my mom had anything against rock music. She knew well who Elvis was, who Led Zeppelin was, the Beatles, and all that. And I honestly have no recollection of her saying that she knew or didn't know who Kiss was. None of that. But I'm the oldest of three brothers. So I was I was 8. So that would mean my younger brother would have been 5 or 6, and then the youngest one still 2 or 3. Now, with 3 young boys freaking out, screaming, and me saying, "You got to listen to that," and not saying it in those exact words, pretty sure my mom just caved and said, "Okay, fine, just play it for you. I've got another 2 over there I got to take care of," that sort of thing. So,
that makes sense.
I think that's probably how it went down.
That makes sense.
It's always funny to hear those stories about what the parents said about Kiss, because I was many years later when I started listening to Kiss, and then like my mom never really cared, and even like when we would go back, and I've probably told this story before about my mom watching the American Music Awards every year, and then when I showed her the Kiss clip, she was like, "I must have changed the channel when that was on, because I watched it every year but never ever watched Kiss back in the '70s." So
yeah, well, I mean, like I said. Go ahead.
So, well, first I want to take a break to just crack open a cold one here and just get Gene. This is the last one I have in the house, so this will be the last plug for a while. But you said the first thing you got was the dolls. As you got a little bit older, what was the first piece that you remember collecting? Did you collect the posters? Did you get all the back records? What's the first piece of things that you remember? Okay, well, I gotta have a Kiss collection, or I have a Kiss collection because I have all this stuff.
Well, once upon a time, I don't know, I mean, I'm talking about Toronto, maybe in your neck of the woods, both of you, they still exist. I don't know. There used to be something called head shops, where they have music memorabilia, all kinds of memorabilia, from posters to pins and all of that. So we used to have a long strip down Yonge Street, the main
Yonge
road.
Street, yes.
Toronto, and it must have had 25 of them leading up to the Eaton Center, which was the core of the downtown. When Kiss played the club tour and came to Toronto for the Revenge album, Paul was on stage saying how they went to the head shops and all the T-shirts that they were wearing on stage they had bought at the different head shops. So it was a pretty big deal. In grade 9, so high school, I have no idea how old I would have been. What, you guys do the math, 14, 15, 13, whatever?
Something like that, yeah.
So at that point, we, after school or even on weekends, my friends, the guys that I mentioned before, we would hop on public transit and go 45 minutes towards the downtown and start walking straight down Yonge Street and hit every single head shop. And we would buy posters. The big thing for me wasn't so much the posters because, well, I shouldn't say that. I was more into buying the magazines like Circus and Hit Parade and all of that. And I would take, because everything was always the same size. And I guess I had that OCD going that if a poster was too big and the other ones were too small, it would look silly in my room. But so if it wasn't the magazines, which I was hanging up on the wall, for me it was the pins. And I was a big fan of the square pins that we would wear. And the only thing is I went to a Catholic high school and we had a uniform. So the pins were reserved for, once school was out, you'd throw on your, your rocker leather jacket, and even back then it was leather, and it'd have the pins on it and all of that. But I remember the coolest thing I thought that I had bought was, and now we're going to animalize, I had bought a headband.
Yeah, buddy.
The leopard print on it,
Yeah.
and it's Kiss Animalize on it. And my idea back in 1984 or 85 of having long hair was really a mullet.
Sure.
And so when I would put that thing on and tighten it, I really looked like, I had the rooster thing up top, the hair at the back, and I had dyed it blonde in the front because that was the cool thing to do at the time. So whatever. But look, long story short, it was a lot of fun back then. It was innocent fun. Sure, there was maybe 5, 6 of us in the area that I grew up in that were rockers that had that sort of style going on. So we got a lot of weird looks, but I didn't care. You guys are all jealous. You guys don't understand style.
That's right.
I'm rocking it, and you don't get it.
Wait, but tell Jason and tell the audience the story, because I know you've told it to me before, but I don't know if it was a license or a bus pass. You know the story I'm talking about?
Oh, when I put somebody else's name on my
yes, that's a great story.
And I got busted for it.
Yes, it's a great story.
Transit, the Toronto Transit System, the TTC is basically what it's called. So when you're in high school, at least in Toronto, you're allowed to get a bus pass, which allows you to pay. I think it was half the fare at the time if you showed this pass, and it had your picture, and you had to sign your name and all of that. So, back then Miami Vice was big. So a lot of the guys who were, filling out their their TTC pass, they were writing like Sonny Crockett or whatever. I was going to say Sonny Bono. That's somebody else. But Crockett and Tubbs and all of that from Miami Vice. Sorry. And so for mine, I remember I wrote down Gene Simmons. And the funny thing is, now I don't remember if I told you this, and then a few weeks later, these passes come in. So you go to the gym and you all sit down on the floor in the auditorium, and they start calling out your name, right? And you hear Sonny Crockett being called out like 12 times, and everybody laughs. And I must have been talking to somebody beside me or not paying attention. It was school after all. So, Gene Simmons, Gene's not here. Oh. And the best part is the teachers who are handing them to me know exactly that my name is David, not. So anyway, it was a big joke. Everybody dug it. But at one point I got caught and it got confiscated. So
I have to interject because that so reminds me, and I don't want to be long-winded, but it so reminds me of a story from 6th grade for me. And if any of my old schoolmates are watching, they probably remember this, which they should be. We had to create these poems in our English class or whatever class it was in the 6th grade. And I was just completely nervous. For some reason, I could not think of anything to write. So in my infinite wisdom, and because I came from a small town and nobody else liked Kiss, I didn't think that anyone would know any Kiss songs. So the poem I turned in was the lyrics to Beth. Well, which I claimed as my own. And so my English teacher, who definitely knew who Kiss was, and I was completely unaware, when she was handing the papers back, there was a big 0 on it, and she said, Jason, I don't know, why you did that. I think this song, this poem sounds familiar. It sounds like a song. And I was like, no, I wrote that. I swear I wrote that. And she said, no, wasn't that a song by Bread? And I said, no, it was Kiss.
Oh. You know what the irony there is, right?
What's that?
You know what the irony is there?
What's that?
Peter would say he wrote it too.
Right.
Oh, man. Oh, man.
That's gonna get some hateful comments.
That's okay. All right. So take us through your early adulthood, even till later on adulthood. Did you keep up with the band? I mean, obviously you had a professional career, a very lucrative professional career. As your career was starting and as you were studying to do what you're doing now, did you keep up with the band? Did you keep collecting? Did you see them in concert?
Oh yeah. I mean, I would say that my they've been with me ever since Love Gun, but as I grew up and I was a teenager, by the time Creatures of the Night came out, that was that was my band. And don't get me wrong, I mean, I'm a big fan of the Crew, even though lately they're being a little weird, but a big fan of the Crew back in the day. Still am, sure. Iron Maiden, I mean, you name it. Any of the hair bands and glam bands from back in the day, they were all valid in my opinion. But Kiss was always a step above, and you can tell that they were the ones that paved the way for all of them. Even bands like AC/DC, and then of course Judas Priest, and I could go on and on and on. So I was always about that kind of music, but by the time Creatures hit, wow. I mean, I had an anthem. I had I Love It Loud. I also had a romantic tune that I liked because I'm not a fan of Beth. Sorry, I'm saying it publicly. But I had, it was a solid, great album. Whereas, if I'm being sincere, The Elder, which I bought right away, it had me a little confused. And I always looked at The Elder as... hindsight's always a bit of a bitch because I see my error in the way I was viewing it, but I always saw The Elder as Kiss's sort of attempt at Floyd's The Wall kind of thing, but never really got there. Sure. And it's not quite, but at the time, that's how I looked at it. But everything prior to that, for me, I loved even Dynasty, Unmasked. I was on board for all of that. It was a little different, but to me it was still Kiss, and they looked fantastic. The thing with me is every time a new album came out, they outdid their look. Now, you can all have your preferences. You can all say, this is my Kiss look, and that's my Kiss look, and that's my Kiss album, and that's my Kiss, and all that. That's all fine. But to me, Love Gun's outfits were amazing. And then after Love Gun, when they came out with Dynasty, to me that was a step up. And so on and so on. Even The Elder, I thought that as different as those suits were, they still had a Kiss thumbprint on them. So growing up and going to college and all of that, they were with me the whole way. I think where it started to not sound like my Kiss to me is by the time they got into Carnival of Souls and that sort of thing. Revenge has some really great tunes that I'm a big fan of, but as they moved on into Carnival of Souls, and here's where respectfully I'll quote the great Paul Stanley, the best frontman in the history of music. I think it was at the Indianapolis Kiss Expo, when he was there for his book signing. I forget how many years ago, it was maybe 3 years ago. Yeah, somebody asked him about something to do with Carnival of Souls and that whole time, and he says, you know what? We tried to do what Metallica was doing, and we weren't very good at it, or I'm paraphrasing, so, and I agree with him. I really do. It sounded like they were going in a direction that, at least for me, I found difficult. Now, that's not to say it was bad. My God, everything that Kiss has done, in my opinion, is amazing. But we all have to be sincere, what draws you to them and maybe what not so much. So if you're asking me where I sort of dipped a bit, that was the time frame. And then by the time Psycho Circus and the reunion occurred, I was like, they're back. My guys are back,
Yeah, there's not very much time to dip there because, by the time Carnival Souls came out, we're already moving straight into Reunion and Psycho Circus. So,
And that's the beauty of it, because there wasn't really a whole lot of time to fall. Because with some of these other bands, and again, I say it all with respect, sometimes in between, you start to dip a little bit, and then some other stuff comes along, and you're like, wow, that's cool. And then suddenly when that new album from that band comes out, you're like, you know what? I'm kind of over it. The reality is I've never been over Kiss. There's been moments where I've preferred it maybe more than others, but there's never been a moment where they haven't been part of my life. No, I don't have tattoos, or it's not like that. They've always been influences. I saw a post today, somebody said it's the soundtrack of my life, and you know what? Kiss has been, and I think a lot of us...
I saw that because it was someone who had a banner at one of the shows. I thought it was a great banner.
It is a great quote. It really is, because for a lot of us, Kiss has been the soundtrack to our lives. The music is identifiable, whether it's been partying. Well, in my case, the whole Plaster Caster thing's not like that. But in both cases, so you know what I mean? But it really has been, for a lot of us, the anthem of our lives. So for those of us who got hooked early, it's hard. It really is hard to say no. The band's have evolved. In my opinion, it's always been an evolution. I've always loved every stage that the band has been in, musically, visually.
Me too.
It's all of that. Nothing but love for Bruce, everybody, for Vinny, Eric, you name it, Mark, all of them, Ace, of course. And I'm also one that says you can't touch the original four, obviously. That they paved the way for where we are now, but much respect to everybody who's come since. And Tommy and Eric, are you kidding me?
Yep.
These guys are the backbone of the band now, and you couldn't have two nicer guys that are more appreciative to their fans. I mean, I've seen them interact with people, and these are legitimate rock stars, just as much as, and they always make time. They've always got a smile, and you know they're tired, but they always have that moment for everybody. So much respect, particularly to the four right now. And the four right now, I've said it before, the four right now, this is my Kiss right here. I grew up from the originals onward, loved everybody. This is my Kiss right here.
Amen.
Great. So for those of you that are just tuning in, and for those of you that are just watching, we do have David Pea from UD and Kiss Replicas. What some of these Kiss fans may not know, you have an extremely successful business prior to even touching Kiss. If you could sum it up, just for some of the listeners, talk a little bit about the infancy of your business and how the business flourished and how it led to Kiss.
Wow, that's how much time do we have? Okay, so
As much as you want to take.
I'll condense it. So originally, I had said that even when I was a kid, 6 years old, I was making costumes, and they were paper and basic. But the point is, the idea of dressing up, cosplay was never a word, obviously, but that's what I had been doing my whole life. And Halloween to me was always such a big deal. And even as a kid, I was either dressing up as Batman, Darth Vader, or Kiss. So they've always been in my life in that respect. Now, as I got older and went to college and all of that, and but in '93, after the second year of college, I think it was a 4 or 6 year program, I honestly don't remember now, I was really disappointed with having worked almost 2 years to get into the best Canadian art college that there is, and luckily for me, it's in my hometown of Toronto. After the second year of nothing but theory and much respect to the artists of the 1400s and back in the day, I wasn't interested in what earth pigments were mixed to paint the ceiling of a cathedral, and what mushrooms the other guy was doing to get inspiration for, and did he really talk to aliens to make his designs? I was interested in using my hands. I was interested in learning trades and skill, and if it needed to be sculpture and mold making, because if I could sculpt something and make a mold of it, in my opinion, I was able to make copies, and at that point I could sell copies. It was whatever. At that point there was no Kiss, there was no Batman, it's just the logic of. So by the second year I was done with art college, I dropped out, and I moved to Italy, and this is where my real school started. And I started working for the first 3 years in Milan in a couture company doing women's high-end fashion. And this was quite an experience. And the people that I met and worked with, it's an experience I'll never forget. But I would work in that environment. And then in the evenings, and I was living with my dad, who lives in Italy, in his garage, I would be sculpting and mold making and making costumes. So even in Italy, I would start making rubber suits. And, the Michael Keaton 1989 movie had come out with that Batman. So I was making myself those types of rubber suits in my dad's garage. So I'd have a mannequin in there with the clay sculpture. My dad would come down, what are you doing? He's fully supportive, but he didn't understand what I was doing until I finally said, here's the rubber piece that I made. And then finally he said, wow, that's pretty cool. Can you make a mold off of the motorcycle on my fairing and turn that somehow into a paint? So I ended up making molds off of my dad's bike to make a painting, a 3D bar relief for him to wear. So long story short, even while I was working in other fields, I was still doing that at home. And then when I moved closer to Venice and went to work for a company that specialized in leather, which is where all of my experience comes for what has since become UD Replicas and Kiss Replicas as far as the soft goods go. I had a little closet in my 2-story apartment, and in that little closet I was sculpting and making molds. And that's where I actually started trying to make some Kiss armor. And that had to be 97, 96, 95, something like that. So I ended up moving back to Toronto in 2001, and I started Universal Designs, and that was a costume making company. Now, the thing is, I didn't know anything about intellectual property. I didn't know anything about copyright and trademark. I discovered this thing called the internet, created a username on forums because there was no social media. It was message boards at the time, and started to meet like-minded people who had the same interest, be it Batman and whatnot. And I started to make these suits, never realizing that, it's not a gray area. It's not allowed. It's a bootleg. It's illegal. You can't do that. So once the reality of that kicked in, that's when I approached the studios and said, hey, here's what our capabilities are. Here's what we can do with rubber. Here's what we can do with form molding. Here's what we can do with leather. Is there mutual interest in developing a commercial line to the public? And fortunately, there was. Universal Designs then transitioned and became UD Replicas. I didn't want the Universal Design name to continue with official merchandise when we had been doing things that were not official prior to that. So luckily, everything seemed to fall into place. And the first contract we signed was with Warner Brothers. Shortly thereafter, Marvel, then with Disney, then with Lucasfilm, then with Hasbro, then with Microsoft. In 2012, we signed a deal with, at the time, Live Nation for Kiss leather outerwear. And that's where the relationship with Kiss began. I think it was 2012. And so we started making some of the leather jackets, and which some people have deemed to be the sexiest leathers on the planet. I won't argue. So
listen, every place I go, because I do own one of the leather jackets, the Kiss Originals leather jacket, which I believe you can still purchase on KissReplicas.com. I'm a great hype man.
For $349.
Yeah, and even people that don't like Kiss, they're like, dude, where did you get that jacket? And then I show them the inside, about how the inside is all this, and I show them that it's heavy and that it's soft and you could do this, and they're like, holy shit.
Yeah.
Even non-Kiss fans love that jacket.
That's great to hear. I mean, I'm a big fan of, if you're going to wear a jacket that has branding, either be loud or be subtle. And that Kiss jacket, it's weird because it's an in-between. It's subtle enough to be loud and subtle enough to be subtle.
Yeah.
Because when you see a biker jacket, you expect it to have some kind of patchwork on it. And it's not loud. It's subtle. But you know what? It's effective. The Kiss fans seem to gravitate towards it, which is humbling to me. And it's just, I agree, it is one of our stronger designs. But that's where the relationship with Kiss started. Now, it of course evolved between 2012 and where we are today. Nice. But it started off with Live Nation.
Wow.
You want to go? Oh, did you have something ready to go?
You just want me to keep going?
Well, we don't want to step on each other's toes. Yeah. So, that relationship evolved and it grew. So, where is that point to where you actually start, the introduction with the actual members of the band and start working with the members of the band?
Okay, well, this is where I want to bring in a colleague of mine, somebody that I respect dearly, and she is Kiss's costume designer. And I'm sure many of you know the name and have seen her. She's a 5-time Emmy nominee, 2-time Emmy winner. So this woman, she knows what she's doing, and Kiss really figured it out when they hired her to design for them their costumes. And I think she's been with them 16, maybe 17 years. So, she's been around for a while. So fortunately for me, she gave me a call back in 2016, I think it was. 2016, yeah. So she was looking to put together the Creatures of the Night costumes for the band for the cruise, okay?
Right.
And so she starts doing all of her research. Now, I forget, to be honest with you, it's all a bit of a blur. I forget how she came to me. At the time I had signed the Kiss costume license with now Epic Rights, who is now Kiss's licensor, no longer Live Nation. But Live Nation, I'm pretty sure, is what handles their concerts. But from a merchandise standpoint, so I think Wendy must have been speaking to either Doc McGee or somebody else at Epic, And my name must have come up as, well, try the costume licensee, because he also does Batman and all of that. And she did. So had a few great conversations with her. And the coolest part is this was happening around July, and we do San Diego Comic-Con every year. So our booth was there with UD Replicas, and we had all the superheroes out. And Wendy came to see me, and I had never met her before. And that was such a treat. She is such a sweetheart. She's a breath of fresh air.
She's one of a kind. She's one of a kind.
Fun. She's just fantastic. And she's always excited about what she's doing, and her energy is contagious. So we met in San Diego. She came into the booth, and we went over all of the merchandise that we do, the different techniques that we can use. And we sat down right then and there in the booth and started going over the creature's costume for Jean. And it was amazing because she opened up a folder, and there were photos of the suit photographed in context and in places that I don't believe the public has ever seen. There's angles there that I myself had never seen. And I'm like, well, this is interesting. I've never seen this picture before. And well, David, you wouldn't. You would, because this is, So I was like, okay, cool. All right. So immediately from the first photos, I'm already seeing how certain things interact on that outfit that I had no idea from before. So that's where the relationship started, working with the band. And prior to this point, I hadn't met anybody from KISS. I hadn't met a single person. And people used to say to me in 2012, 2013, so you work with KISS? Well, sure, the way I work with Warner Brothers and all of that, but you haven't met the band? Well, it's kind of like I haven't met Christian Bale or Michael Keaton either. It's really not the way it works.
Right.
People would say, but don't you want to meet them? And my kind of knee-jerk reaction was, I kind of do, but maybe not, because I've grown up with these people as individuals that I look up to. Same with Batman and all of that. These have been figures for me. What if they're not nice? What if that's kind of a kick to the? I'd rather keep the idea of what I've built up these people to be in my head as is. I don't need to meet them. Well, guess what? I ended up meeting them. They were far larger than anything I could have thought they would be. They were larger than life. They were polite, well-spoken, patient. I can go on and on and on. They were the complete opposite of what I was afraid and because it happens sometimes. You go to these conventions, you might meet some of the actors and some of other people that are there, and you hear it all the time. Well, he wasn't really nice, and he kind of threw my script back at me. I hear it all the time. Sure. The time. So to be faced with these larger than life heroes who have influenced me, being always involved in costume making ever since I was a kid, and for them to also be great, to be nice people, and to just be really, really cool was amazing. Was just fantastic. So, and that's how the relationship started. So we began to develop the Creatures of the Night outfit, and at the time, I have to say, I put together an amazing team. I had Ken, I had Woody, and we all worked together to build this suit up. And when we started doing the test fittings on Mr. Simmons, Gene, it was great to see how it started off. I had made a copy out of fake leather, and then we would put it on him, and we would start cutting it on him and gaff taping it back into place, adjusting areas, tightening, all of that. And to see it all come to life directly on him, it was incredible. And to see how invested he was in his overall look. It wasn't just an afterthought. It wasn't like a pair of Levi's to him. This was his battle suit. This was his image. And so they're absolutely 100% invested in their KISS persona and the look that they've got. So that was the first introduction to KISS and starting to work with them. And then it led into the cruise and all of that. So a lot of big moments, but the first time meeting the guys and all of that, it was a moment. And then ask me later, because I have a funny story about that.
So you've had this long history working with KISS, and you had this long history working with a lot of extremely successful studios. And obviously, you're not really focused on the paperwork aspect of this. You're a hands-on guy. You make the stuff. There's a really when you were first delivered the contract to work on the Kiss outerwear, and then you were delivered the contract to work on Kiss's costume replicas, and then obviously there's probably contracts and stuff delivering Kiss's actual costumes. Talk a little bit about what your feelings are about getting those in your hands and what that means to you, what that means to 1977, David.
Okay, well, there's I'm going to answer that in two separate ways, because the first contract we got was with Warner Brothers, and that was in 2008, I believe. And then the signed copies came back in beginning of 2009. And that was a big moment for us. We were legitimate. We were now working with the studios. And it was a huge, huge feeling as somebody who grew up watching Adam West on television, believing that he could scale buildings and all of that, and now being able to make Batman uniforms and leather outerwear and motorcycle suits for the public. That contract meant everything. So every contract that we've since had has meant the world to me. But there is a side story to it. Now, I'm, as you put it eloquently and nicely, that I'm the hands-on guy. I think the reason why we've had the success that we've had is because I'm fortunate enough that my wife, Rima, she runs the administration of the business. So what does that mean? It frees me up to go do, sculptures and mold making and speak to customers. I don't have to worry about the paperwork. And believe me, with over 11,000 customers, we have a lot of administration, a lot of paperwork. There's a lot to do. So I'm lucky that my partner in life, my best friend, mother of my children, she's my business partner, and she handles that side of it. So the way this works is, when the contract comes in, signed by all parties, I would get a call or an email, and Rima would say to me, okay, so this contract came in, we're good to go. And I'd be like, okay, cool, awesome. All right. And I know it gets filed with the contracts. So this contract came in. Okay, great, cool, awesome. Let's go. So, and this, we're going back to 2009. So come 2012, when we started working with KISS, the contracts come in, and Rima called me, whatever. Okay, so the KISS contract has come back signed. We're good to go. What basically means is we can now go public with it and all of that. So my answer is, okay, that's awesome, great. Let's get started. I don't look at the contract. I don't see it. It's paperwork. She handles it. So, and we've had several renewals along the way, and then we signed with the KISS, the costume line and all of that. So one of the later contracts got shipped to the studio where I am right here. And so the mail gets brought up to my desk, and I open it up, and I'm like, oh, the KISS contract is here. Oh, that's strange that it came to me. So I don't know what possessed me to just sort of look through it, but it was just one of those quick things where you flip it with your thumb. And I opened it up to the signature page, and I'm like, oh, wow, Mr. Gene Simmons signed it. So I pick up the phone, and I call my wife, and I'm like, hey, Rima, okay, so look, the KISS contract came in, and I got it right here. I'll bring it home with me tonight. And you know what? This is really cool. But, Gene Simmons, he personally signed it. I had no idea. And she goes, what, you mean like the other 3, 4, 5, however many we've got? What, you didn't sign all the other ones either? You didn't know that? And I'm like, no, I didn't. So I thought it was that one instance, but no. Which further goes to show just how obviously invested these folks are in all aspects of the organization KISS. And if you stop and think about it, it's a huge deal, and they still dedicate that kind of time to every single aspect that is
Absolutely.
KISS. You have to respect that.
Nobody better to watch your house than you. So no one better to look over that stuff than you. So it's still, no disrespect to Tommy or Eric or anybody else that's in the band, but it's Gene and Paul's baby, so they're gonna watch over it like
Sure.
like hawks, like they should. So this is the point of the show where I typically ask our guests about if they're gonna go to see the end of the road, if any of that. I don't want to ask you that. I want you to tell me, because for the listeners that don't know, David Pea from UD and KISS Replicas, you made Gene Simmons' costume that was debuted on the cruise and that is being used on the End of the Road tour. And there's also a really cool prop that you made that is on the End of the Road tour. how did you first get involved with making the costume that is going to be Gene's last, and then go into this famous stage prop that you got called in on?
Okay. Well, Gene was in Toronto, and I want to say it was May. He was doing his vault presentations where he gives to everybody personally. Now, I happen to be there to assist on hand. I'm in Toronto; it's my city. So, together with Keith Valcourt, Andrew, you were there as well.
Mm-hmm.
So, long story short, I was the guy that got Gene from the hotel to the venue, and basically just helped out any way that I could. At the end of the day, when it was time to take pictures with just the organization, the people who were left, when I approached Gene and we got to talking, I think right then and there he didn't recognize me as the guy who had made his creature suit back in 2018. I mean, some time has passed, and to say he's a busy guy is a bit of an understatement. And to say he sees a few people in the course of the day is, again, an understatement. So the minute it clicked with him that I had made his creature's outfit, and again, I always say I mean my team. I never want to take everybody's credit, but for sake of. So he immediately invited me for lunch the next day, and so went to lunch and had this meeting about discussing his next costume, which at the time there was no indication that it would be the end of the road, the last tour. None of that. We just started talking over lunch, and ideas were being thrown around. And I think immediately right off the bat, what impressed me the most was not that he knew what he wanted, but he knew exactly what he didn't want. And there were certain elements that were important to focus on, and other things there was a bit of been there, done that. So we want to leave that aside as something unique to the past, or maybe it had been tried in the past and it didn't work the way he wanted it to. So let's not go down that road. We want to do something like this. So it was pretty cool because I had my sketchbook, and as he's talking, I'm sketching out what I believe he's saying, and I would say like this and hand it to me and go, no, turn it and he would sketch it out, and he would say, does that make sense? And I'd be like, oh yeah, absolutely, and take it back and start. So there was a lot of back and forth, and I had also brought a large suitcase full of all sorts of sample different armor pieces, leather armor that we had done, all sorts of things that I could visually show him where he could, touch it and understand, okay, so this is what you'll get if we go in that direction. Here's what you'll get if we go in that direction. Or what do you think of this? This is a certain type of chrome. So it was great that he had all these visual references, and we were good to go right then and there. And so I immediately began designing, and we would communicate electronically or over the phone. And so I'd send him the sketches, and he would comment saying, this is cool. How about if we do that? Can we modify this? Can we modify that? So what I can say is the birth of what we've come to call his dragon suit, because there's no new album to it. And sure, it's been called now the End of the Road costume, but this was designed as a dragon. It was inspired heavily by your wonderful T-shirt there, Andrew. It was inspired heavily by Sammy the Serpent. And you can see the evolution of the dragon heads. Sammy's basic shape is there. Now, we couldn't keep it exact to his shape because Sammy has a flat head. And it's long and narrow, like a snake. Whereas a foot, it has ridges, and because he's up on a platform. So we have to respect all of those angles. So it evolved from that into what you see here. But I think what's important to state is Gene was just as important, if not more so than myself, to the creation of this design, if you will. Yeah, I'm the one who sketched it out and did it in Photoshop and all of that. But his communication and the clarity in which he was able to convey what it is that he believed he wanted because again, it did evolve from the original designs throughout to where it ended up, was fantastic. He always made himself available. I got to tell you, you won't get more than a 5-minute gap between a text message before he responds. I mean, he is, and think about how busy the guy is. You guys know how, everybody, the listeners know how much he's got going on, but no more than 3-4 minutes, bing, and there's your response right there. So I never had to wait for anything, ever. And he was very clear in all cases about it. And one of the examples, when he came here to see the sculpture and to actually see it in person and to see how the vibe was, what I remember saying to him was, Mr. Simmons, Bruce Wayne and Batman, who are two well-known personas, and the costume is just as important as yours is. The difference is Bruce Wayne, he doesn't exist. Batman doesn't. They're fictitious characters, okay? Gene Simmons is real because he was actually sitting right behind me here. So the demon, his persona, his stage persona is real. So when Mr. Simmons is expressing his desire for a certain look and certain attributes on the costume and angles and contour and silhouette, you better believe you're paying attention, because with Batman, okay, you could change this, you could change that. You say it's Batman, it's Batman. And if Bruce Wayne one day shows up and says, no, that's not Batman, then okay, it isn't. But in the meantime, Mr. Simmons exists. So it was very important to us to listen to every single word he said, not to take anything for granted. And to his credit, he allowed the project to evolve. So he gave us talking points, he gave us inspiration and all of that, but he allowed for us to sort of let this sort of go where it went. And that was one of his words. Okay, we got a working design. Okay, let's see where it goes. And the minute I heard him say that, it dawned on me, okay, we're not necessarily locked to it. That's a vibe that he wants. Now let's see how it comes to life. So he was just as integral as any of us here were. And he knows his history, because I talked about certain films that I picked at from an inspiration. What was that? Now I can't draw a blank from it. Which
Creature
turned
from the
out,
Black Lagoon.
well, there was Creature. Yeah, that wasn't the one I was. But Creature from the Black Lagoon, and what's the one with the early film where the dragons are tearing apart the city?
Is it 100,000 Leagues Under the Sea? No, it's
No.
I know it's on the tip of my
It'll
tongue. I
come
know.
to me. As it turned out, when I mentioned the film to him, he actually said that was what he had explained to the designer. And your fans will know, listeners will know the gentleman who designed the destroyer look and the shells. The talking points were from this film. The dragon heads came from it. Repticas. So when I mentioned that, he went on to tell me who directed it, when it came out. He knew everything about it. I thought that was incredible. I thought that was fascinating. I mean, he went on and on and on about it. And then he would point to the sculpture of the dragon head, and he would say, okay, so this is where you took inspiration from this and inspiration from that. And he and I together, that's when I said, well, how do you feel about putting small mandibles on the front of the dragon head, so that we don't have always the same, just long teeth? Not that there's anything bad there. I mean, but how do you feel about changing it up? Oh, yeah. And then I put the little piece of clay on there. He goes, I love it. And that's how those evolved into the look that they have now. He's well read, and when it comes to popular culture, his thing, the comic books and all of that, yeah, he knows his stuff. No question.
Fascinating.
Well, you touched on it a little bit, but tell us about Sam. How did this start? Did he call you up one day and says, "Hey, I want this"? How did that end up on stage?
That's exactly what happened, actually. It was okay. So it was in the month of January when I got the call to make Sammy. Now, it was on stage January 31st. We got the call in January. And we went back and forth on the timeline, because naturally he wanted it for the opening night in Vancouver. And my first thought was, we're in the middle of making his costume, because it evolved from the cruise costume. So the one that's behind me here, that's the suit that he wore on the cruise, which is not what he's wearing on stage. So, and we can discuss that if you like, how it evolved from this to what he's wearing now. So we're working on the wearing now outfit, and we're already working 12, 14, 16 hours a day to make sure that we get his outfit ready for him in time. And now we've got this Sammy the Snake. Now, make no mistake, I could have simply said, no, look, we're too busy, we won't do it. But, I mean, look, first of all, they've been great to work with. It continues to be an honor to work for them. And I just wanted to make sure that we continued to please and satisfy the client. So I had a meeting with my assistant, and I said, what do you think, guys? And we all agreed, we'll do it. No matter what it takes, we'll work the hours that we have to work. We'll just get it done. So we had 3 weeks to do the gig. So from the moment we got the call, it was 3 weeks to January 31st.
Unbelievable.
Well,
Now,
see, I knew something was going on because like I'd call David, be like, hey, what's going on? He'd be like, I can't talk. I'm really busy. I'll talk to you next week. And I was like, man, I must have. Anyway, continue.
So it's funny because I remember thinking we need every day of these 3 weeks to make this serpent a reality, and we have to make it look like what was done in the 70s. I'm a huge fan of the style from that they had back in the day. I much prefer the direction that they're in now, but you can't ignore the influence and the style that they had.
Yes.
So all of that said, we had 3 weeks, but in between there, I had pre-scheduled fittings with Gene to try on the final end of the road outfit, which has evolved, like I said, from the one that's behind me. So, and whenever I do those, I'm away 24 hours. So I'll fly out either the morning of and come back the morning of the next day or night before. Anyway, I'm gone 24 hours on a schedule where I don't have 24 hours of that luxury to be away. So long story short, we finished the end of the road outfit. I want to say we finished it 8 days before the 31st. So let's walk backwards. What is that? The 23rd of January? Mm-hmm. Okay. We finished it to the point that I could be hands off. So everything was sculpted, everything was molded. TJ was running the carbon fiber at that point. So that gave me a chance to step away. So we had 8 days before Sammy had to be in Vancouver, and we hadn't even started it yet.
Oh my gosh.
Okay, we hadn't even started it yet.
Unbelievable.
So I literally went from rubbing carbon fiber off of my hands, which I hated because it gets into my skin and all of that. Carbon fiber is what the end of the road outfit is made from, by the way. It's not fiberglass, it's not vacuum formed, it's carbon fiber. And we can get to the merits of that. But so we started Sammy, literally, I washed my hands off of all of that stuff. And I want to say it was around 5:30 or so in the evening on a Thursday. It was a Thursday. And I started carving sheets of foam to get the general snake shape. And I remember because I think I got home around midnight, 12:30, something like that, and which wasn't exactly a rare occurrence. At that point, we'd been working late nights. But so the next morning, the guys come in, and when they had left, there was no serpent, there was no nothing. And they show up the next day, and he's roughed out. All 8 feet of the snake, it's roughed out in foam. There's no detail on it, but we have a shape. They're like, what happened yesterday? Did you like sleep here? Because we've done that too. And I'm no. Actually got home at a decent time. And they're like, decent? You must have got home at 2 in the morning. No, it was about 12:30. Wow, that's amazing. So that's how it started. Now, again, TJ, my assistant, he's a welder by trade. So he had actually started a few days prior welding up the frame and the whole structure that Sammy's hooked on. So I want to say that aspect had started a few days prior. But the snake hadn't started itself until that Thursday, 8 days before. So we got started, and it came into play I want to say fairly quickly and relatively seamlessly, but they were long days, and you know, try as I did to make it look as close as possible, and it does. It's pretty close to the original, but obviously when you compare the two, there's differences. I mean, I always go back to people like Maria Contessa, Nino, and the list goes on and on and on of whoever was involved with stage design, costumes, props. There was a style back in the day that, you know, Adam Savage has talked about this. Adam Savage of Mythbusters, somebody who I respect, again, dearly good friend of mine. He's talked about how back in the day, you know, the costume makers from the Star Wars movies, they weren't doing things the way we're doing them now, where we're researching through the internet. There was no internet back then. So they were grabbing magnifying glasses and using those as eyeballs, and grabbing this and using it. Like, you just grabbed what you could and made it happen. Model kits turned into what would be the spaceships and all of that. So it's really hard to capture the vibe and all of that, because they were working with a mentality that's hard to dig into nowadays. So I have nothing but respect for them back then. I think we came pretty close. Obviously there's differences, but the vibe is there. And so when the project was completed, the minute we finished it and we high-fived each other, and I've since posted pictures. There's a picture of me, my arms around my assistant, and our eyes are bloodshot because we had been up at that point 40 hours. It had been a 40-hour stint to get them done, but it was the 29th of January. He had to be in Vancouver by the 30th, and the gig was the 31st, okay? So we're done on the 29th. We had already gotten FedEx freight, and we had a custom crate that we made and all of that.
That crate.
Yeah, the crate was, so FedEx, the truck comes to pick up the crate, and we had this massive snowstorm, so the truck showed up a little early. We didn't have Sammy in the crate yet, and it took about an hour to get him in the crate, and the driver wasn't coming. And this is an 18-wheeler. I mean, we have a forklift here, so we needed a forklift. That's how big. The crate was 96 inches long, 48 tall, and 40 wide, something like that. Weighed close to 500 pounds. So
Damn.
the driver refused to come back, and I had to get this crate to FedEx today by 9:30. Okay, so rented a van, loaded the crate with the forklift into the van, drove it, and driving it to FedEx was the worst because I had been up at this point over 40 hours. So I asked my wife to come with me, and we're in the middle of a snowstorm because, I mean, God forbid, you know, I start to swerve or whatever. So, and this is late in the evening. This is at about 7 at night now, and I had to be there by 9:30. So we got it to FedEx. Everything was fine. They unloaded it, and managed to get back, finish working on another set of boots, which is really cool because there's this special VIP all access that Keith LaRue is hosting for fans that want to be right in the pit in front of the band, meet the guys backstage before, hang out with them. You get to try on costume elements like the boots. So we were finishing up those boots right then and there. So I didn't get home until 1:30 in the morning. My alarm clock went off at 3 in the morning so that I could get to the airport in time to go to Vancouver. So the only sleep I had was on the plane. We land in Vancouver. We get there. We start doing a couple of just finishing things on Gene's outfit. And then I want to say at about 12:30, I get the call from the tour manager, Robert, that Sammy had, in fact, arrived. The crate is here. So went over there and took him out of the crate, got him all set up. And it was really cool because even all of the guys that are setting up the stage, like a lot of them were coming out to see what the hell's going on. And then they were like, I thought, wow, they're coming out because this is cool. No, they were all coming out like, what the hell is this? What are we supposed to do with this? You mean this is also going on the stage?
No one told us about it.
So I thought they were all coming out to share in the passion that is, look, Sammy's back and all of that. They were like, what are we supposed to do with this? So anyway, obviously it all got figured out. It got up on stage. But what I have to tell you, here's what's hard to convey, and Kiss fans get it, but it's hard to put into words. It's nothing but an honor, and not even a dream come true, because this wasn't even in my wheelhouse to make costumes for Gene Simmons, to work on costume elements even for some of the other band members and Batman and all of that. These were all my influences, my idols. So to be working in this environment for these people directly is nothing short of the most humbling experience on the planet. But when to see the snake on stage, to see Sammy on stage, and to be up there getting them all set up and getting the wings straight and trying to figure out, are the proportions correct? Is the basket going to light on fire? Is the smoke going to come out of the mouth? Is the tongue going to fall out and all of that? And then once it's all set up and you take 12 steps back and I'm on the stage and I'm looking at the snake and I'm making sure that he's not too close to anything else or too far from anything. Holy crap. Wow. He's back. Sammy's back. And I was introduced to Kiss at Love Gun, and I also fell in love with the snake, that prop, and I've always wanted to own one even when I was a kid, and I wanted to make one and all of this and all of that. So the first reactions when you see them online, because I was there for opening night, but it was all quick and I was side stage, working with Gene throughout. But when you see the reactions from the fans when I got home, and you see the picture, some people were up in the rafters, so they were photographing the stage from behind the curtain, and they were already saying, look, Sammy's back, Sammy's back. You realize just how forward-thinking Gene was, Gene, Paul, whomever collectively had come up with the idea to bring Sammy back. The call came from Gene, but the idea could have come, I don't know, that's above my pay grade. But the fact that they, we should, for the end, bring that back, that was huge, because even on social media and the calls we keep getting, customers wanting copies of it and all of that, and how great it is. People are saying Kiss is back with this tour. Kiss, they never went anywhere, but it feels like they're back because everything it's big again. It's a massive tour, the kind of tour they've never done before, and the nostalgia, the feeling of nostalgia, be it in their modern yet retro costumes, because that's what they are. They have the retro look, obviously with the modern techniques and abilities that we have nowadays, okay? But they have that retro vibe. What you're seeing on stage that's being visually shown to you in the octagons and on screen is a history of the band as well. So the nostalgia is huge with this tour. And come on, what is Kiss if not a nostalgia band? All the way from 74, if not even earlier for some people, straight through to, they've been with us all these years. So it was a great feeling, even for me as a fan, to see Sammy on stage and to see, Gene interacting with it every now and then. It's fucking cool. Can I say that?
Yeah, you can say that.
It is really, really, really cool. So again, long story short, being able to do the outfit, amazing. Being able to do the serpent, amazing. I'm forever grateful to Mr. Simmons, the organization, everybody who've always been helpful, always available. And let's face it, they're nothing but props and pieces of carbon fiber until those four breathe life into them. Because look, this is cool back here, don't get me wrong, but when you see it on Gene, it comes to life. Everything comes to life. So you really got to hand it to these guys. They make it all happen. And it's just, these are moments that I'll never forget.
Well, what the hell is next? What can you do? What can the company do from here? Because if anybody has visited your booth at San Diego Comic-Con, you just recently launched a line of DC footwear. You have Batman costumes. You have Harley Quinn costumes. You have Batman Begins outerwear. Superman, Man of Steel outerwear. What's next for the company? Because I see you post pictures of Kiss costumes. What's next?
Okay, well, there is a lot. I mean, you have to also be attentive to different fan bases, and you also have to sort of follow the momentum, if you will. This is a bit of a Kiss moment right now. So it's. I mean, I'd be lying if I said while I'm in Kiss mode, I'm also, spending 8 hours a day on these other projects that are not KISS related, be it Batman or whatever. So I'm on an all in when I'm working on a given brand or property. So, but what I can tell you is that there's a lot of Batman that's coming, because I've teased a little bit of that on social media as well, but we've been in development of a ton of new suits for quite a while. I mean, you've even seen some at the booths. We've got different Flash unit, and they're not costumes. These are either motorcycle suits or leather jackets. Costumes we have with KISS, with all of the other franchises that we've worked with or work with, they're in that case, it's clothing, outerwear. They look like the suits, the replicas, but they have a function, be it motorcycle wear and that kind of body armor function. But so there's a lot of Batman coming. It looks like we're finally moving forward also with the G.I. Joe line through Hasbro.
Nice.
I had a talk just hours ago with production with regards to where we're going with helmets. And these are prop costume helmets for G.I. Joe. So Snake Eyes and Storm Shadow are things that we had teased in the past and never managed to bring them to production for a million reasons. But now it looks like things are finally moving forward. So long story short, it is a bit of a KISS moment, but we've got some Justice League motorcycle suits coming. We've also got some other independent Batman suits coming, and just much more from the superhero line than we've really been teasing. We've got Nightwing coming. We've got some Robin. We got one Nightwing, one Robin, and more female suits. There's more footwear coming, and we're also involved in some other TV shows and feature films. So we're busy.
Well, I just want to, because now that you mentioned that, I want to mention something that I read on one of your KISS FAQ posts. I understand you're working on something to show the process of the Jean costume. Can you talk about that yet or anything like that?
Yeah, I'm happy to talk about it. We documented the entire build of everything that we've been doing with KISS. So we've documented the build of the Cruise costume, which is what it's now being called, the Cruise costume, the End of the Road costume, Sammy. Everything's been documented. And I think what's exciting about this is fans are going to be able to see exactly what goes into the making of it. Because it's not fiberglass and it's not slapping stuff in like that. There's real technology here. I mean, we're using pumps, we're vacuum bagging. There's just the techniques are rather elaborate, as their suits are. I mean, there's a lot of technology. That's probably not the right word. I mean, there's a lot of tech and function in this one here, because people are like, oh, he changed the suit because he couldn't bend over. No, that's not what the purpose of the suit being changed is, because I don't know if you can see this, but do you see the abdomen here?
Yes.
This is all like a gator. Are you able to see that?
Yeah.
Yes, we can see it. Yes.
Do you see how it all moves?
Yeah.
So it's connected to the cod piece right here, but he had full range of movement. So when I say tech, I guess I'm referring more to that. But as far the technique standpoint of the making of all of these suits it's pretty unique. And the other thing that I'm really proud of is I finally get to showcase my team. Like, I finally get to show who's involved. Every now and then I'll mention some people, but the big thing to me is, I talk about idols and influences, but growing up, I'd be watching all sorts of movies from horror to sci-fi and all of this, and I would always fall in love with the works that were done, the alien creature, the Predator, and so on, the Terminator. The
Gogothal shit demon.
Yeah, exactly. So the what now? Wait, what did you call it?
It's called the Gogothal shit demon from Jay and no, it's actually from Dogma, but it's the Jay and
Oh, okay. Well, anyway, yeah, I know what's going on. So, long story short, I never thought that I'd ever have an opportunity to work with some of the artists who brought these things to life. And thanks to the internet and all of this, I've since managed to meet Steve Wang, Jose Fernandez, Brian Wade, and the list goes on and on and on. But this Jean costume thing was a treat for me, because I got to work with one of my childhood influences, Brian Wade, who, guys, Google him, go check his Facebook page. He's one of the people who was responsible for bringing the Terminator to life with Arnold Schwarzenegger, the original one, creatures from Fright Night. I mean, he to say that his work paved my adolescence and adulthood professionally to where I am now is an understatement. So I was very proud, first of all, that he was available to fly out to Toronto and work with me on this project, but that he was so much fun to work with and encouraging, and it was, I think it was a 3 or 4 day stint that he came out for, because he's very busy, but it was, I think, 4 days total. The amount that I learned in that time is ludicrous, and the results are stunning. And I just can't wait till you guys can see his contribution to the suit as well. So yeah, we're putting together a documentary, and whether KISS releases it or we release it on their behalf, we'll see. But yeah, there's going to be a lot. We're going to show everything. And something I keep forgetting about is prior to the end of the road costumes, we actually had been called on to make Gene's boots lighter than what they have been in the past. Now, Gene's bootmaker is a rock star. I mean, Andre #1, they don't get any better than that. But this is something that Wendy, again, KISS's costume designer, she called me up and said, "Is this something that you can do?" So this wasn't my gig. I was brought on board. They wanted carbon fiber heels and platforms, and that's where the carbon fiber really started with KISS. So, we did the heels, we did the platforms out of carbon fiber, and Gene was very happy. It reduced the weight from whatever they were, I forget. I think the boots now weigh maybe 4 pounds. Maybe.
Oh, wow.
And these things are past his knee, and they've got armor plating and all of that on them. So we also made 2 sets of monster shells out of carbon fiber, and the leg armor, the monster leg armor, that was also made out of carbon fiber. So that was the first introduction there. So all of this has been documented. So the platforms, the everything that we've done, and we're going to put that all into this documentary.
That's great.
Hopefully is shorter than 17 hours long when it's all said and done. Yeah.
So since we've touched on it several times, and we've said we'll go back to it, can you tell us the story of the evolution from the cruise suit to what he's wearing now? Why that came about? And
Absolutely. I mean, first of all, it wasn't something that was pre-thought out to have 2 different suits. That wasn't the way it was at all. We had discussed the design of the suit. And then once we got going, and particularly when Gene came here and we were looking at the sculptures and talking about how they're going to perform and all of that, he was quite pleased with visually what he saw, how everything had been brought to life. So then once we started to do the fittings and get him into it and moving around, the first thing that dawned on us is, even though he has full range of movement, there's a lot of moving parts here. There's just a lot of moving parts. And we've all seen Gene on stage. We've seen all the guys on stage, but it isn't until you're standing in front of him and you see what happens when he takes a deep breath, and you see what happens when he moves in certain ways, and as he starts to get active, and you realize just how active, and the word I use is how violent Gene can be on stage. And I don't mean that, but he's quite active. I mean, he's bouncing his bait. The thing weighs 14 pounds, and he's moving it around like it's nothing. So there's just a lot of motion going on, a lot of movement going on. So the first thing that dawned on me, and we had a discussion about it, was there's a lot of function in this outfit. And my first thought was, now that I see how you're moving, I'm worried about a possible 3-year tour. And what if we have failures along the way? What if, there's all sorts of what ifs. Now, don't get me wrong. They've got a great team that takes care of their outfits as they go on tour. The best is what they've got. So they can handle almost anything, but why complicate everybody's life? It is the first thing. So why don't we revisit that? Then, and it was also purposely originally made with no spikes. This will be one of the first armor suits that you have Mr. Simmons without any spikes, nothing on the shoulders, nothing on the boots. We'll have little teeth sticking out and all of that, but let's make a bold statement. Loved it, loved it, loved it. But right after the first night of the cruise, or I think it was after the second one, and we were all backstage discussing the outfit and this and that, and it was clear that I think he missed having spikes. I could see it, and even Paul Stanley had mentioned, would it be cool if we brought the spikes back? Could it be? So you don't have to hear things like that twice. I mean, these guys are the characters. It's not like they're brainstorming how the next comic book character should look like on film or whatever. This is them. So they don't have to say. I mean, the minute you catch on to, maybe say no more, consider it done, and that's what brought the spikes back, and. Again, just the concern about how this was going to perform over long term is the reason why we went back to a traditional codpiece the way it is. Now, I say traditional in the sense because it's tried and true, and, especially what Wendy has done prior, there's just no topping what she and her teams have done before. So, we followed suit, but we customized things a bit. So you'll notice that the armor is much closer to the codpiece because we're still trying to get that consecutive look, even though there's a natural break there. But when he's got his base in front, this still does look like that. It still looks like a single creature thing. And again, to Gene, the creature from the Black Lagoon and Godzilla were important looks to him. The whole scaled front, he really, really, really liked that. He really loved that idea. If you could do that, that would be great. It's okay, well, why don't we give it a shot? So that's how the two evolved from each other, and and it's important that the suit perform a certain way. It's lightweight. I mean, it's no secret. He said it himself. He's going to be 70 this year on tour.
I can't believe that.
It's unbelievable.
As a costume maker, you'll work with different age groups and different people, and I'm familiar with what these armor suits have weighed throughout the years, and some more, some less, some this and that, but like even ours, which we've reduced considerably because we're using carbon fiber and all of that. I mean, it's insane to think, 7-inch platform, 7-inch heels and all of that. I've worn the suit. Yeah, obviously I've had to put it on, and I've also worn it holding one of his bases. It's insane to think what these guys put themselves through. It's just crazy. So I guess at the end of the day, when you start thinking long term, 2, possibly 3 years, there's certain considerations that we wanted to revisit here and say, okay, if we're going long term, then why don't we make this consideration? Why don't we make that? So, but visually, there was one thing. It doesn't look like it right now, but the collars, and if you look at the pictures, it was really tight on like close to Gene's head, and we really wanted it, and we talked about it, and he wanted it really open. He wanted to have it nowhere near him, so it was important that was brought out. I mean, Gene is built. He's built well. I mean, he's got nice broad shoulders, and you see it here. It's on a torso. It might not look imposing or anything like that, but when you look at the pictures of him from the photo shoots in that same outfit, it's a whole other ball of wax. So he's got the stature for it. He's got the height. I mean, he really does bring these things to life. So again, I mean, there's always discussions about how things, can we do this? Now that we've worn it, could we do that? Sure.
A quick question about, speaking of failures, possible failures and things like that on the road, since they're going to be out there for so long, how many does he have out there? Does he just have one, or did you make 2 or 3?
There's a few sets.
There's a few sets.
There's a few sets, of course. I mean, and that's always something that you want to watch out for. God forbid something goes wrong. Again, right. They have a great team that's always making sure that everything's ready to go night after night. But you want to also try to have a fresh suit every time. So they might interchange them from night to night and things like, so yeah.
Fascinating story, my friend.
I don't even know what else I could ask at this point. I mean, talk about the minutia about the costume making is just fascinating. Well, I know what I could say at this point. If you want to keep up, make sure you follow David Pea on social media. He's on Facebook, but also follow UD Replicas and Kiss Replicas, udreplicas.com, kissreplicas.com. They have buy something. They have corresponding social media accounts, and there's lots of cool teases on there. There's lots of cool things coming, as David said. And any final thoughts, David, at this point?
Yes.
Well, I mean, like I said, it's a bit of a Kiss moment right now because of everything that's happening and everything that's going on. But as Andrew keeps saying, yes, there UD replicas with the superheroes and all of that. So we do have quite a few new items coming out in that regard. The Justice League is something that we've been working on steadily. I haven't confirmed publicly anything to do with Aquaman yet, but the simple fact that I'm talking about it, do the math. So there's quite a bit of items coming out. So I mean, other than that, it's just I think that I'm fortunate to be doing what I've always wanted to do as a kid. And when you grow up and as a grown up, I'm 50 this year, so I would assume at some point I'll be grown up. You talk to people and what did you go to school for? Oh, I went to school for this, but now they're doing that. Or as a kid, I wanted to be this, now I'm doing that. And much respect to anybody who's working. That's not where I'm going with this, but I'm one of the lucky ones. I got to be a kid when I was a kid, and I got to experience the thrill of wanting to wear a costume, be somebody else. I got to experience that as a child. I got to experience that as a teenager. And I'm 50 this year, and I'm still doing that, but I'm doing it professionally for the people who influenced me. Kiss. I worked with Lucasfilm. We had a Star Wars line. We continue to work with Warner Brothers. We have Batman and all of that. So I think what it is it's extremely humbling, and I wouldn't change this for the world. But the reason I'm lucky, the reason I'm able to do what I'm doing is because my partner in life, my wife, runs an aspect of a business that allows me to run the creative side of the business and essentially live my dream. I've got a great team. Everybody from Rebecca, who's been working with Kiss, I think, since 2004. Rebecca has been my dedicated seamstress for all things end of the road. She would come out here and stay with us for a week, whatever, and work the crazy hours, the all-nighters, all of that. So Rebecca, Brian Wade, TJ, who works here at UD Replicas, I don't want to. April, who I brought on in Los Angeles for an all-nighter. That's another story. All of these people were detrimental to getting the project or the projects done and to where they're at. In the past, Woody and everybody else. So it's just I'm lucky to have surrounded myself with people who know what they're doing and understand the big picture. Hours or not, it's just let's get it done is the attitude. I like people who just get it done.
Well, David, you have a wonderful and absolutely fascinating story. I have been captivated this whole time, not wanting to interrupt you.
Same. For once, I shut up.
Yeah, it's just been really. Yeah, he never shuts up. So
I know.
It's the number one complaint I get that I delete on YouTube. Tell Andrew to stop talking.
Can't help.
Just kidding. I'm just kidding.
But he's not though. But listen, David, I'm proud to call you a friend, and you have an open invitation to come back anytime to talk about other cool projects. I wish we had like a comic book podcast that we just have you on every week talking about.
Maybe we should start one.
Let's start with Kiss My Comics.
Kiss My Comics.
Last week we started a show called Kiss My Vagina, and this we're starting one called Kiss My Comics.
So you should
figure it out.
You should say more.
Yeah. But David, thank you so much for joining us for this. And
it was a real pleasure, man.
It really was. It really was.
Honestly, the pleasure is all mine. I love. People say I love the sound of my voice, and it's true. But what I love is being able to talk to like-minded people or in the fandom, whatever it is, so that we can all enjoy these experiences together.
Yeah.
So thank you so much for having me on. I look forward to coming back anytime.
You're always welcome.
All right. Thanks, David.
Do you want to record an outro?
I don't think so. It's not
Okay.
necessary unless you want to.
No, I really
Yep.
don't. I really
Yeah,
don't.
we don't ever do outros, so